The jungle was alive with strange noises, each sound carrying the weight of danger. Soldiers of the Galactic Union had trained for battlefields, but nothing had prepared them for the death world of Zithera. Its air was heavy, the soil seemed to breathe, and every shadow hinted at creatures more deadly than any weapon. Yet it was not the beasts that frightened the soldiers most. It was the silent figure at the edge of their camp, a girl with emerald skin, violet hair falling across her shoulders, and eyes that glowed like fire in the dark. She was not one of them. She was an alien, bound in chains, accused of betraying her people. The commanders whispered about her. Some called her dangerous, others called her a liability. But the young human soldier Kale saw something different. Where others saw a prisoner, he saw strength hidden beneath the weight of her silence. The alien girl's name was Serenia, once a guardian of her people, now accused of treachery because she refused to obey an order that would have killed thousands. To her empire, she was dishonored. To the humans, she was a tool they did not fully trust. When dawn broke, alarms shattered the stillness. From the tree line came the roars, deep and primal, shaking the ground. The apex beasts had been released. Towering predators bred by Zithera itself, their scales glistened with venom and their eyes burned with hunger. Soldiers raised their rifles, but the jungle swallowed bullets like raindrops. Men screamed as the creatures leapt, tearing through, armor like paper. It was chaos, brutal and swift. Amid the terror, Serenia lifted her head. Chains clinked as she stepped forward, her gaze steady, her voice sharp with warning. They will not stop. They hunt until nothing lives. The commanders ignored her, ordering more fire. Kyle, however, caught her eyes. There was no fear there, only a fire that matched the beasts. In that instant, he knew she was not lying. She understood this planet better than any of them, and she was the only one who could save them. But before anyone could act, the ground split apart. Another apex. Beast burst from beneath, its maw wide enough to swallow a man whole. Soldiers scattered, their formation broken. Kyle pulled a wounded comrade back, but the beast's shadow loomed over him. The air thickened with dread as death closed in. Then, unexpectedly, Serenia's voice rang out. Even bound, her words carried power. The beast hesitated, its head tilting as though it recognized her command. For a brief second, the battlefield froze. The commanders stared in shock. This girl, this supposed traitor, had influence over the most feared predator on Zithera, but their arrogance quickly returned. One barked an order, demanding her silence, demanding she be dragged back. Kale's blood boiled. He saw the truth that others refused to admit. This was not a traitor. This was a warrior whose loyalty had been broken by those who feared her strength. And now, in this unforgiving world, her loyalty was the only thing that could keep them alive. Kale made a choice. He stepped forward, placing himself between Serenia and the commanders. His rifle trembled in his grip, but his voice did not. "Unchain her," he demanded. Gasps rose around him. A human soldier defying his own leaders was unheard of, but the beasts circling them cared little for politics. The jungle would claim them all if they wasted another moment. The apex beast snarled, its teeth dripping with venom, ready to strike. Kale's hands tightened on his weapon, yet his eyes stayed fixed on Serenia. She did not beg. She did not plead. She simply met his gaze with the quiet strength of someone who had survived betrayals far worse than death. And in that shared moment, Kale understood. This was not just about survival. This was the beginning of something greater, something the galaxy itself was not ready for. The war had just changed, and no one could stop it now. The apex beast's growl rolled through the jungle like thunder, shaking leaves and scattering flocks of winged predators from the canopy. Soldiers scrambled into defensive positions, rifles raised, eyes wide with fear. The commanders shouted orders, their voices breaking as panic spread through the ranks. None of their weapons had slowed the creatures. Each shot only made them angrier, faster, hungrier. Serenia stood still, her chains biting into her wrists, her gaze locked on the monster before them. The creature's massive claws dug furrows in the earth, its venom hissing as it dripped and burned through the soil. But her eyes did not waver. She had seen this beast before long ago when she was still loyal to the empire that had cast her aside. She knew its strength, its cunning, and the ancient call that could sway its rage. Cale could not breathe. His grip tightened on his rifle as he watched the commanders argue. They saw Serenya's strange control as a threat, not salvation. One of them, a grizzled officer with scars across his cheek, barked an order to silence her. A soldier stepped forward, rifle raised toward Serenya. Kyle's instincts screamed. Before his mind could catch up, he shoved the rifle aside, his own weapon aimed squarely at the soldier. Gasps erupted around them. A human soldier pointing his rifle at his own brother in arms. It was mutiny, treason, the kind of act that carried only one punishment. But Cale did not back down. His voice cut through the chaos, steady and strong. Unchain her, or we're all dead. The apex beast roared again, its body crouching low, ready to spring. The air trembled with the weight of its muscles coiling for the strike. Time slowed. Serenya's voice, calm and commanding, broke the silence. If you do not release me now, your bones will be the first it scatters across the trees. Her words carried no fear, only certainty. The soldiers hesitated, caught between the authority of their commanders and the undeniable truth in her tone. Cale's jaw tightened. He pressed his weapon harder against the soldier's rifle, forcing him back. Do it, he growled. Finally, with a curse, the scarred officer snapped his fingers. Another soldier fumbled with the key, his hands shaking as he unlocked the manacles around Serenya's wrists and ankles. The chains fell with a heavy clang against the stone. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Serenya simply stood there, rubbing her wrists, her violet hair swaying in the damp air. Then she lifted her hands, her fingers tracing symbols in the air that glowed faintly with alien light. The apex beast froze mid-lunge, its jaws snapping shut just short of Cale. It tilted its head, nostrils flaring, its glowing eyes fixed on Serenya. She whispered words in her own tongue, a language that rolled like thunder yet soothed like rain. Slowly, impossibly, the beast lowered itself, crouching not to attack, but to bow. The soldiers could only stare, disbelief etched on every face. Cale's heart pounded. He had risked everything, his life and his honor, on a single instinct, that she was not their enemy. Now, as the beast's growl softened into something closer to a purr, he knew he had been right. The commanders, however, were furious. The scarred officer stepped forward, spitting venom in his words. This changes nothing. She is still a traitor. You've endangered us all. Kyle turned his rifle on him now, his voice low but filled with steel. She just saved your life. Maybe you should start seeing her for what she is. Serenya lowered her hand, the glow fading. She turned her gaze toward Cale, her emerald eyes shimmering with something unreadable. Gratitude, perhaps, or the faint flicker of trust. For the first time in years, someone had chosen her side without demanding a price. But before the moment could settle, the jungle roared again. More apex beasts moved in the distance, their cries echoing through the trees. Serenya's expression hardened. That was only one. The others will not bow so easily. If you wish to survive this death world, you will follow me. The soldiers exchanged fearful glances. The commanders fumed in silence. And Kyle, standing beside the unchained alien girl, knew the war he had stepped into was far greater than he had ever imagined. The soldiers followed in uneasy silence, their boots sinking into the damp ground of Zithera's jungle. Every step seemed louder than it should, every breath too heavy. The apex beast that Serenya had calmed walked a few paces behind her, its glowing eyes sweeping the trees as if warning unseen predators to keep their distance. None dared challenge it. For now, the beast was her shadow. Cale stayed close, his rifle ready, though he knew it would do little against the horrors lurking in this world. He couldn't stop glancing at Serenya. She moved with quiet certainty, her chains gone but her posture straight, as if every tree and stone obeyed her command. There was something untouchable about her, a strength no iron could bind. Behind them, the commanders whispered bitterly. They saw Kale's defiance as betrayal, and Serenya's presence as a ticking bomb. Yet none dared speak openly, not while the beast padded along like a silent guardian. The jungle itself seemed alive. Vines writhed across the branches. Strange. Eyes glowed in the underbrush before vanishing. The air reeked of minerals and wet earth, thick with spores that clung to their armor. Soldiers shifted nervously, their weapons twitching at every rustle. Kyle broke the silence. "Where are you taking us?" Serenya did not look back. "To higher ground. The beasts are hunters of the lowlands. They drive their prey upward, toward the cliffs. That is where we will be safe, and if only for a while." Her voice was calm, but her words sent a ripple of unease through the soldiers. "Safe for a while?" one muttered. Serenya stopped, turning her head slightly. "There is no safety on Zythera, only choices that keep you breathing until the next danger arrives." Kale caught her eyes and gave a firm nod. He understood. This was not a world of peace. This was a trial by fire, one the galaxy had thrown her into long before they arrived. As they moved deeper into the jungle, the ground trembled again. The soldiers froze, rifles snapping up. Serenya raised her hand. "Do not fire. They are not hunting us yet." From the trees above came a different sound, not the roar of the apex beasts, but a low clicking, almost mechanical. Shapes shifted in the canopy. Dozens of spindly creatures crawled along the branches, their bodies gleaming with a metallic sheen, their mandibles snapping in rhythm. "Death World drones," Serenya whispered. "They follow the scent of blood." The soldiers stiffened. Several of them were wounded, their armor still slick with crimson. The clicking grew louder, the swarm edging closer. Kyle's grip tightened. He turned to Serenya. "Can you stop them?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Not these. They are machines of flesh and metal, bred only to consume." The swarm dropped from the trees in a wave of claws and metal limbs. Soldiers fired, the jungle flashing with bursts of light. The drones shrieked, sparks flying as bullets shattered their shells. But for every one that fell, 2 more replaced it. Kyle fired until his rifle overheated, the barrel glowing. He kicked one drone back, its claws slicing across his armor, leaving sparks and shallow cuts. The soldiers fell into disarray again, their screams mixing with the mechanical screeches. Serenya moved like lightning. She pulled a blade from the carcass of a fallen drone, its edge gleaming with alien alloy. Spinning, she cut through the swarm, her strikes precise, her strength terrifying. Kale watched her fight, her movement so natural it was as if she had been born for this chaos. The apex beast roared, swiping its massive claw through the swarm, crushing drones like insects. Still, the numbers pressed in. Kale found himself back-to-back with Serenya, his breath ragged. She spoke through the noise, her voice sharp. "You wanted to live? Then stand with me." Together, they fought. He shot the drones that leapt from the shadows while her blade cut down those that slipped through. The apex beast crushed wave after wave, its loyalty bound not by chains but by her voice. When the last of the drones fell, silence returned to the jungle, broken only by the ragged breathing of survivors. The ground was littered with broken shells and scorched earth. Several soldiers lay dead, their weapons scattered. The commanders looked on, their pride crumbling into bitter silence. Kyle turned to Serenya, sweat dripping down his brow. "You saved us again." Serenya met his gaze, her emerald eyes glowing faintly. "No," she corrected softly. "We saved each other." But as she turned toward the cliffs ahead, Kale noticed something in her expression. A shadow, a warning unspoken. She had not brought them here only to survive. She had brought them here because something greater was coming, something even the apex beasts feared. The climb toward the cliffs was slow and brutal. Roots and jagged rocks tore at boots and armor, while mist clung to the ground like a ghost. The jungle never slept. Distant roars echoed from the valleys below, and every shadow promised more predators waiting to strike. The soldiers were exhausted. Their eyes darted from tree to tree, their nerves stretched thin. The commanders barked orders, pushing them onward, their voices sharp with anger rather than courage. But the men no longer looked to them for hope. Their eyes lingered on Serenia and the massive apex beast walking calmly behind her. Kyle noticed it. Every soldier who had once sneered at her now followed her movements with quiet trust. They had seen her fight. They had seen her command the impossible. And in their hearts, they knew she had saved them, not their commanders. The scarred officer, however, burned with fury. He would not let his authority crumble so easily. He marched beside Kale, his voice low and venomous. "You've destroyed discipline, soldier. You've endangered us all. When we return, I will see you court-martialed. Do you understand?" Kyle kept his eyes forward, his voice calm. "If we return, it will be because of her, not you." The officer's face twisted, but he said nothing more. His pride was crumbling, and pride could not stand against truth for long. At last they reached the cliffs. From this height, the endless jungle spread out like a sea of green and shadow. Mist drifted between the treetops, hiding the movements of beasts below. But it was not safety that Serenia saw. It was a warning. She knelt, pressing her hand against the stone. The air vibrated faintly. A hum felt more than heard. Her eyes narrowed. The apex beasts are not the only danger here. Something older stirs. The Empire must have known. Kyle crouched beside her. Older? Her gaze met his. This world was not made. It was engineered. A crucible for life. The beasts, the drones, the poisons, all designed to test strength. And now the true guardians will awaken. Before Kale could respond, the ground shook violently. Cracks split the cliffside, stones tumbling into the mist below. From the depths rose a sound unlike any they had heard. A deep, resonant cry, ancient and filled with rage. The apex beast at their side snarled, its massive frame trembling, its eyes flashing with fear. The soldiers panicked, shouting, some raising their weapons, others falling to their knees. Serenia stood tall, her violet hair whipping in the rising wind. She looked at Kale, her voice steady despite the chaos. "This is why they released the beasts. Not to kill me. To keep me away from this place." Kale's chest tightened. He understood now. She had not been cast out only because of her defiance. She had been banished because she knew something her empire wanted buried. The cliff cracked again, and from the shadows below, a colossal shape began to emerge. Wings stretched wide, scales black as night reflecting the dim light, and eyes that glowed like molten fire. The soldiers froze, their courage breaking. The scarred officer shouted, his voice shaking, "Fire! Bring it down!" Gunfire erupted, lighting the sky with desperate flashes. Bullets struck the creature's scales and bounced away harmlessly. Its roar silenced the storm of shots, its breath hot enough to wither the air. Serenia did not move. Her eyes locked on the creature, her voice rising above the chaos. "Stop. You cannot kill what was never meant to die. This is the Apex Guardian." The soldiers faltered, their rifles lowering in disbelief. Kyle stepped forward, his heart hammering. He could feel the weight of the Guardian's gaze, as if it were peering into his very soul. For the first time since they had landed on Zithera, Kyle realized this was not a war they could win with weapons. This was a trial of loyalty, of trust, and of something greater than survival. Serenia turned to him, her voice quiet but filled with certainty. "If you stand with me now, Kale, you stand against your own commanders. Do you still choose me?" The question burned in the air. Soldiers held their breath, the Apex Guardian's wings casting a shadow over them all. Kyle gripped his rifle, then let it fall to his side. His eyes never left hers. "I choose you." The Guardian roared again, shaking the cliffs. And with that choice, the fate of them all shifted forever. The Apex Guardian towered above them, its massive wings spreading across the sky, blotting out the pale light that filtered through the clouds. The soldiers trembled, some dropping their weapons, others clutching them so tightly their knuckles turned white. No creature they had faced compared to this. The drones were mindless machines. The apex beasts were predators of flesh. But this was something else. Ancient. Intelligent. Its molten eyes swept over the group, pausing on each soldier as if weighing their worth. The air grew hotter, heavy with pressure, until even breathing felt like a struggle. Then slowly, it lowered its head toward Serenia. She did not flinch. Her emerald skin glowed faintly in the heat, her violet hair whipping around her face. She stepped forward, blade still in hand but lowered, her voice steady. "I know why you rise. I know what this world was built for. We are not your enemies." Their guardian's gaze shifted, settling on Kale. Its growl rumbled like stone breaking apart. Though no words were spoken, Kale felt something pressing against his mind. A question, silent yet thunderous. Would he fight beside her, even against his own kind? Kale swallowed hard. Sweat ran down his face, his heart pounding so violently he thought it might burst. But he did not look away. He stepped up beside Serenia, placing himself between her and the soldiers still aiming rifles in panic. His voice cracked but remained firm. "I stand with her." The soldiers gasped. The scarred officer's face turned red with fury. "You've lost your mind. That thing isn't testing us, it's hunting us." He raised his weapon, finger tightening on the trigger. The Guardian moved in a flash. Its wings swept across the cliffside, the force hurling the officer to the ground. His weapon, shattering against stone, dust filled the air. When it cleared, the Guardian's burning gaze pinned him to the ground. The officer could not move. His pride stripped bare, his voice reduced to silence. Serenia raised her hand, speaking not to the soldiers, but to the Guardian itself. "We did not come to destroy. We came because your masters turned this world into a prison. We seek truth, not conquest." The Guardian's eyes flared brighter, and suddenly the air around them shifted. The cliffs trembled, the jungle below roared, and the ground beneath their feet cracked open. From the chasm rose images, not real but carved from light, visions of the past. The soldiers gasped as they saw armies of aliens marching, humans, chained, beasts unleashed. They saw Serenia's empire, proud and cruel, using the world as a proving ground for warriors. And in those visions, Serenia herself appeared, younger, armored, leading troops into battle. Kale's heart tightened. He saw her fall to her knees in defiance, refusing to carry out an order that would have slaughtered thousands of innocents. He saw her beaten, stripped of honor, cast out as a traitor. The Guardian was showing them her truth. The soldiers stared, in stunned silence. Everything they had been told about her crumbled before their eyes. She was no traitor. She had been punished for mercy. Kale stepped closer, his voice rising with conviction. "You see now? She was never your enemy. She has been fighting for life for all of us longer than we ever knew." The Guardian's roar shook the air, but this time it was not anger. It was recognition. It folded its wings, lowering itself, in a gesture of respect. The soldiers stared in awe as the great creature bowed its head before Serenia. The scarred officer tried to protest, his voice hoarse. This changes nothing. She cannot lead us. She's alien." Kyle turned, on him, his eyes blazing. "She's the only reason any of us are still breathing. If you can't see that, then maybe you're the one who doesn't belong here." Serenia looked at Kale, her gaze softening for the first time. In his defiance, she saw something rare, a human who chose trust over fear, loyalty over command. For the first time, she was not alone. The Guardian rose again, its roar echoing across the cliffs like a declaration. The trial was complete. Serenia had been judged, and she had not been found wanting. But as the dust settled and silence returned, she turned her eyes to the horizon. Dark clouds rolled in, heavy with storm and fire. She knew this was only the beginning. For beyond the jungle, her empire was watching, and they would not allow their secrets to remain buried. The jungle was quiet after the Guardian's roar, faded into the clouds. Too quiet. Even the insects seemed to hold their breath as if the world itself was bracing for what came next. Serenia stood at the cliff's edge, her emerald eyes fixed on the horizon. She could feel it. The shift in the air, the weight of a storm that carried not rain but war. Kale stepped beside her, his armor scorched and dented from battles already fought. "What is it?" he asked. Her voice was low, steady, but touched with dread. "The Empire. They know I've survived. They will not allow the Guardian's truth to remain hidden. They are sending their hunters." Kale frowned. "Hunters? They are not soldiers," she explained. "They are executioners, chosen for loyalty, trained for silence, armed with weapons forged only to kill those marked as traitors. They will not stop until I am ash." Behind them, the soldiers shifted uneasily, hearing enough to understand their danger. The scarred officer spat into the dirt, his bitterness undimmed. "Then we give you to them. Let them take you, and the rest of us walk free." Kyle spun on him, fury flashing in his eyes. "Free? You call dying slower in this jungle freedom? She's the only reason we're alive. You hand her over and the hunters will kill us too." The apex beast growled as if agreeing, its massive claws scraping the ground. The soldiers who once doubted Kale now murmured among themselves, torn between fear and the truth of his words. Before the argument could erupt further, the sky split with fire. 3 burning streaks descended, slamming into the jungle below with deafening crashes. The ground shook, birds scattered in terror, and black smoke rose into the clouds. The Empire's hunters had arrived. From the smoke emerged figures in dark armor, their forms sleek and inhumanly tall. Their helmets gleamed with crimson visors, their weapons glowing with plasma energy. They moved with terrifying precision, no words spoken, no hesitation in their stride. Each step was a promise of death. The soldiers fell back, panic flashing in their eyes. These were not ordinary foes. Even the Guardian lifted its head, watching with caution. Serenia's jaw tightened. "They've brought the shadow blades." Kyle raised his rifle, though his hands trembled. "How do we fight them?" "You don't," Serenia replied. "You survive. I will fight them." The scarred officer barked a bitter laugh. "You? Against them? They'll carve you apart before you draw a breath." Serenia turned to him, her emerald eyes burning. "Then watch closely, and see why your empire fears me." The first of the hunters appeared at the cliff's edge, its crimson visor glowing through the mist. Without a word, it lunged, plasma blade igniting in its hand. Kale barely had time to aim before Serenia moved. She met the hunter's strike with the alien alloy blade she had taken from the drones. Sparks exploded as steel met plasma. Their clash was brutal, fast, almost too quick to follow. The hunter's strikes were merciless, designed to end her with each blow. But Serenia's movements were sharper, her blade finding openings no ordinary warrior would see. With a final twist, she drove her weapon into the hunter's chest. The creature fell, sparks and smoke spilling from its armor. The soldiers gasped. Even the Guardian let out a low, approving rumble. But Serenia did not celebrate. She lifted her blade, her voice grim. "That was one. There are many more." As if on cue, the jungle below erupted with shadows. Dozens of hunters emerged from the smoke, their red visors glowing in the mist, their weapons humming with deadly energy. They moved in perfect formation, silent as death itself. Kyle's throat tightened. "We can't fight them all." Serenia's eyes narrowed. "No, but we can make them bleed." The Guardian spread its massive wings, the apex beast snarled, and Kale lifted his rifle, standing shoulder to shoulder with her. The soldiers, though terrified, raised their weapons too. For the first time, human and alien, beast and Guardian, stood together against a common enemy. The hunters raised their blades, and the cliffs of Zithera became a battlefield once more. The air burned with tension. Crimson visors glowed through the mist as the Empire's hunters advanced in silent formation. Each one carried a plasma blade humming with lethal power, their armor designed to absorb the harshest blows. They moved, like shadows given life, their steps steady, their discipline unshakable. Kale's heart pounded in his chest. He gripped his rifle tightly, knowing it would take more than bullets to stop these executioners, yet he refused to lower it. If Serenia would stand against them, so would he. The Guardian shifted behind them, its massive wings spreading wide, stirring winds across the cliff. The apex beast snarled at its side, muscles coiled and ready. Soldiers who once trembled now raised their weapons, though fear still clouded their eyes. They had seen Serenia fight, seen Kale defy orders. Now, against all reason, hope sparked in their hearts. The first hunter lunged forward, plasma blade arcing. Kale fired, the shot striking its visor. The energy shield rippled, but did not shatter. The hunter barely slowed. Serenia met it mid-strike, her alien alloy blade clashing against plasma in a shower of sparks. She twisted low, her movements sharp as lightning, and cut through the hunter's side. Sparks burst from its armor before it collapsed, lifeless. Then the rest charged. The cliff erupted into chaos. Soldiers opened fire, their rifles lighting the mist with bursts of energy. Hunters cut through the storm, blades slicing, armor deflecting. Screams and sparks filled the air as men fell. The Guardian roared, unleashing a blast of searing fire that consumed 3 hunters in an instant. The apex beast leapt forward, its claws tearing through steel and flesh alike. It was a storm of fang and fury, fighting not for chains but for Serenia's voice that bounded in loyalty. Kale fought with everything he had. He dodged a plasma strike that scorched the ground where he had stood, rolling and firing point blank into a hunter's visor. The shield cracked and Serenia finished it with a swift cut. She moved beside him like a force of nature, her blade singing through the air, her every strike filled with precision and fury. Still, the hunters pressed on. Their numbers seemed endless. For every one that fell, 2 more surged forward. The soldiers faltered, cries of despair rising as their line broke. Kyle saw it happening. If they lost formation here, the hunters would cut them down to the last man. He shouted above the chaos, his voice raw with desperation. "Hold the line! Stand together!" Something changed then. The soldiers, battered and broken, looked not to their commanders, but to him. They rallied around his voice, pressing shoulder to shoulder, firing in unison. The hunters found themselves slowed, forced to fight through a wall of human defiance. Serenia noticed. Between strikes, her eyes flicked to Kale, a flicker of respect breaking through her usual calm. He was not just surviving, he was leading. The Guardian roared again, unleashing another blast of fire that lit the sky. The apex beast tore a hunter in half with one swipe. And in the center, Serenia and Kale fought as one, blades and bullets, striking in perfect rhythm. But even as victory seemed possible, Kale felt the shift. A presence heavier than the rest entered the field. From the smoke stepped a figure taller than any hunter before. Its armor was black as obsidian, its blade longer and burning brighter. The air itself seemed to bend around it. Serenia froze. Her voice dropped to a whisper only Kale could hear. The Prime Hunter. Kale's stomach turned cold. The other hunters had been deadly enough, but this one moved with a purpose beyond killing. Its gaze locked on Serenia, and for the first time, Kale saw a flicker of unease cross her face. The Prime Hunter raised its blade in salute, then pointed it directly at her. The battle around them faded in that moment. Soldiers, beasts, even the Guardian seemed to wait. Kale tightened his grip on his rifle. He knew what was coming, and he knew she could not face it alone. The battlefield fell into an uneasy silence. The hunters halted their charge. The Guardian lowered its wings, and even the apex beast growled but did not strike. All eyes turned to the towering figure that stepped forward, its black armor gleaming with cruel perfection. The Prime Hunter. Its crimson visor burned like a blade of fire fixed on Serenia. It moved with deliberate grace, each step heavy with authority. This was not a soldier. It was a living execution, a creation designed for one purpose: to end traitors of the Empire. Serenia lifted her chin, her blade steady, though Kale saw the tension in her shoulders. She had fought beasts, drones, hunters, but this was different. This was the Empire's hand reaching across the jungle to crush her spirit. The Prime Hunter stopped only a few paces away. It raised its massive plasma blade in salute, then spoke, in a voice like steel grinding against stone. "Serenia of the Shalthar, marked traitor, you will kneel." Her emerald eyes burned as she replied, her voice steady. "I will never kneel to cowards who kill their own." Without another word, the Prime Hunter struck. The clash was like thunder. Sparks exploded as blade met blade, the sound echoing across the cliffs. Serenia moved with lightning speed, parrying, twisting, striking, but the Prime Hunter countered with flawless precision. Its strength was monstrous, every blow forcing her back, her boots carving lines into the stone. Kyle watched, his chest tight. The soldiers held their breath, torn between awe and fear. The Guardian crouched low, its growl vibrating through the ground, but it did not intervene. This was Serenia's trial, one she had to face alone. Still, Kale could not stay still. He fired at the Prime Hunter, his rifle cracking with energy. The shots struck its armor, but the shields rippled and absorbed the damage. It didn't even flinch. Its focus never left Serenia. The duel raged on. Serenia darted in close, her blade slicing across its side. Sparks burst, but the Prime Hunter countered with a vicious strike that nearly knocked her weapon from her hands. Kale shouted, stepping forward, but she yelled back, "Stay back, this is mine!" She pressed forward again, her movements growing faster, more desperate. She fought not only with strength but with fury, each strike a reminder of the chains she had carried, the betrayal she had endured. For every blow the Prime Hunter landed, she answered with her own. Yet Kale could see it, the weight wearing her down, the monster's relentless power slowly breaking her defense. At last, the Prime Hunter's blade sliced across her arm. She staggered, blood shimmering against her emerald skin. Kale's heart stopped. The soldiers gasped, fear spreading like fire. The Prime Hunter raised its blade for the killing strike. Serenia dropped to one knee, her strength faltering. And then Kale moved. He sprinted forward, grabbing a fallen drone's alloy blade. The Prime Hunter swung, but Kale raised the blade just in time. Sparks screamed as plasma clashed against metal. The force nearly broke him, driving him to his knees. But he did not let go. Serenia looked up at him, her eyes wide with shock. "Kyle." He gritted his teeth, his voice breaking with strain. "You don't fight alone." The Prime Hunter pressed harder, its strength immense. Kyle felt his arms burn, his body trembling. But Serenia rose again. With a roar of defiance, she struck from the side, her blade driving into the Prime Hunter's chest. The armor cracked, sparks bursting like fire. The Prime Hunter staggered, its visor flickering. Kale twisted his blade, pushing with every ounce of strength left in him. Together, they forced the monster back. With one final strike, Serenia drove her blade through its core. The Prime Hunter froze, its crimson visor dimming, before collapsing onto the stone. The battlefield erupted in silence again. The hunters who remained froze, their visors flickering. Without their prime, they hesitated, their perfect formation. Broken, Kale fell to his knees, chest heaving, sweat dripping into his eyes. Serenia stood over the fallen Prime, blood on her arm, her breath ragged. She looked at Kale, her expression softer than he had ever seen. "You should have let me fall," she whispered. He met her gaze, his voice hoarse but firm. "I'll never let you fall." For a moment, even with the war still raging around them, the world seemed to pause. A human and an alien, standing together where no trust should have existed. But the war was not over. The hunters were regrouping, and Serenia knew the Empire would send more. Far more. The Prime Hunter's body smoldered on the stone, its crimson visor flickering once before fading into darkness. For the first time, the Empire's perfect machine of execution had been broken, not by an army, but by one alien girl and a human who refused to abandon her. The soldiers stood stunned, their rifles lowered, their fear mixed with awe. The apex beast growled softly, pacing near Serenia as if guarding her. The Guardian raised its head, its molten eyes burning with pride. Yet the silence that followed was not victory. It was warning. Serenia knew it. She wiped the blood from her arm, her voice low. The Empire will not accept this defeat. They will come with more than hunters. They will come with fire. As if answering her words, the sky burned. High above, 3 warships tore through the clouds, their engines rumbling like thunder. Beams of light stabbed downward, carving through the jungle, reducing trees and stone to ash. The soldiers panicked, their voices rising in despair. Kale clenched his fists. They're not here to capture us. They're here to wipe us out. Serenia's eyes narrowed, her expression grim. Yes, to erase the Guardian, to erase me, and to silence anyone who has seen the truth. The ships opened fire. The cliffs shook as blasts struck nearby, scattering rock and flame. Soldiers dove for cover, some crying out in terror. The scarred officer screamed above the chaos, his voice breaking. "We're finished, we can't fight ships." Kyle grabbed him by the collar, dragging him back from the edge. His eyes blazed with fury. "Then stand and fight or die a coward. But don't you dare take the rest of us down with your fear." The officer froze, silenced at last by the fire in Kale's voice. Serenia turned to the Guardian. "You are bound to this world. Will you rise against their fire?" The great beast spread its wings, flames building in its throat. Its roar shook the skies as it launched upward, meeting the Empire's warships with firestorms that split the clouds apart. One ship banked hard, its shields glowing under the Guardian's fury. The other 2 fired in return, their beams scorching the sky. The apex beast leapt down the cliffside, charging into the jungle below, tearing apart the soldiers and drones that had been deployed from the ships. The ground shook with its rampage. Kale rallied the human soldiers, his voice carrying above the fire. "Hold your ground. If she fights, if the Guardian fights, then so do we." Weapons roared. Plasma lit the cliffs as hunters and drones surged again, their numbers overwhelming. Serenia moved among them, her blade a streak of light, her movements fierce despite her wounds. Kale fought by her side, his rifle spitting fire until it overheated, then grabbing another from a fallen comrade. But even with their courage, the Empire's power was crushing. The Guardian took blow after blow from the warships, its wings scorched, its body bleeding molten fire. It roared defiantly, but even its strength had limits. Serenia looked up, her chest tightening. She could feel it. The Guardian would fall. And when it did, Zithira itself would collapse into silence, the Empire's shadow stretching across the galaxy once more. Kyle saw the fear in her eyes, though she tried to hide it. He stepped close, gripping her arm. "Tell me what we can do. There has to be a way." She hesitated. For years, she had carried the truth alone, a secret too dangerous to speak. But Kale's voice, raw and desperate, broke the chains of her silence. "There is a forge beneath this world," she said quickly, "older than the Empire. A weapon sleeps there, one meant to defend life against those who would destroy it. But it will answer only to those who fight not for conquest, but for each other." Kale's pulse raced. "Then we find it. Show me." The cliffs shook again as a blast tore a crater into the stone. Soldiers screamed. The Guardian faltered in the air, crashing onto the mountainside with a roar of pain. The warships circled for the kill. Serenia grabbed Kale's hand, her voice fierce. "If we fail, everything ends here." Together they ran toward the cliff's inner tunnels, the path leading deep beneath Zithira, toward the forge of the ancients and the last hope against the Empire's wrath. The tunnels beneath Zithira breathed with heat and silence. Walls of black stone shimmered faintly, carved long ago by hands not human, not alien, but something older. The air vibrated as if alive, each step carrying Kale and Serenia deeper into the heart of the world. Behind them, the roars of battle still thundered, but here, time felt suspended. Serenia led the way, her blade glowing faintly in the dark. Her emerald skin shone under the strange light of the stone, her violet hair damp with sweat. Kale followed close, his rifle gripped tightly, though he knew bullets would mean nothing in the place they entered. At last, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. The ceiling vanished into shadows, lit only by streams of molten light running, like rivers across the stone. At the center stood the forge, a towering structure of crystal and metal, its surface carved with runes that pulsed faintly as if waking from a long sleep. Kyle froze, breath caught in his chest. It wasn't a weapon in the way he expected. It was alive, humming with power that seemed to press against his bones. Serenia approached slowly, reverence in her every step. The forge of the ancients, built before empires, before even my people. It chooses its wielder. It creates not for destruction but for balance. Only those who fight for others may claim it. The chamber shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Above, the warship's blasts tore deeper into the cliffs. The Guardian's roar echoed faintly, pained but defiant. Time was running out. Serenia placed her hand against the forge. The runes flickered but did not brighten. Her jaw tightened. It does not answer me? Kyle stepped forward, confusion flooding him. Why not? You've fought. You've bled. You've saved us all. She turned to him, her gaze heavy. I have fought, yes, but too often for revenge, for pride, for defiance. The forge knows my heart. It will not choose me. Kale's throat tightened. The blasts above grew louder, closer. The soldiers had little time left. The Guardian would fall, the apex beast would die, and the Empire would erase everything. Serenia's eyes locked on him. Kale, try. He froze. Me? I'm just a soldier. I've done nothing. You stood when no one else would. You chose trust over fear. That is enough. Kale stepped forward, his hands trembling as he pressed them against the forge. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the runes blazed with light. The entire chamber shook, molten streams flaring as if a heartbeat echoed through stone. The forge awakened. Energy surged into Kale's body, burning and blinding, yet not painful. It filled him with visions. Soldiers standing side by side, alien and human, beast and guardian, fighting not as enemies but as one. He gasped, falling to his knees, but the forge did not reject him. It embraced him. When he rose, a weapon rested in his hands. A blade forged of crystal and fire, its edge glowing with every color of the stars. It hummed with power, heavy yet weightless, a symbol of life's defiance against tyranny. Serenia's eyes widened. She whispered, almost to herself. The forge has chosen. The chamber split with another blast. Rocks tumbled, and a hunter fell through the ceiling, blade raised. Kyle moved without thought. The new weapon cut through the hunter, as if through smoke, its energy exploding outward, sending shards of molten light across the stone. Serenia smiled faintly. Now you see. They raced back to the cliffs. Outside, the Guardian was pinned beneath fire, its wings scorched. Soldiers clung to the edge, their line breaking. The warships hovered overhead, ready to end everything. Kyle raised the forge blade high. Light burst from it, brighter than the sun. The Guardian roared in answer, its body igniting with new fire. The apex beast rose again, wounds knitting with renewed strength. Even the soldiers, beaten and bloodied, found their courage rekindled. Together, human, alien, beast, and Guardian struck back. Kale hurled arcs of light that shattered hunters. Serenia fought beside him, her blade moving in harmony with his. The Guardian took to the sky once more, its fire merging with the blade's brilliance. One warship fell in flames, then another. The third tried to flee, but the forge's light pierced its shields, splitting it apart. The sky burned, the Empire's wrath crumbling into ash. When the silence returned, the cliff stood scarred but alive. The soldiers cheered weakly, their voices carrying relief. The Guardian bowed its massive head to Kale, and even Serenia lowered her blade in respect. She stepped closer, her emerald eyes meeting his. You were never just a soldier. You are proof that even in the darkest worlds, trust can forge something greater than fear. Kale exhaled, exhaustion flooding him. He looked at the blade in his hands, glowing softly now, not as a weapon of war, but as a promise. For the first time, he believed, not just in her, but in what they could build together. And above the ruined jungle, the stars burned brighter than ever, witnesses to a war that had ended not with conquest, but with choice.